She lives across the hall, apartment 4C. Mrs. Calloway to everyone else. Anna when she finally let me call her that. Mid-40s, quiet. Carries her groceries one bag at a time like she doesn't want to bother anyone. People in the building say she keeps to herself, but I've noticed she hums under her breath when she's unlocking her door. Soft tunes, nothing I can recognize, but enough to make me linger in the hallway just a few seconds longer than I need to. At first it was accidental. Passing by, hearing her laugh at something on TV. Then it wasn't. I'd find myself pausing before my own door, my key half-turned, pretending to check my phone while she searched for hers in that oversized purse. She never seemed to notice. Or maybe she just let me believe that. That night, the hall was quieter than usual. Everyone else in the building must have already disappeared into their apartments. I heard the distant hum of the radiator, the faint drip from a leaky pipe near the stairwell. And then, her door opened. She stepped out in a cardigan, her hair pulled back loosely, the kind of look that makes a person seem more real than they want to be seen. She didn't look surprised to find me there. Instead, she tilted her head, watching me too long, as if weighing something. "You were at your window again," she said finally. No anger in it. No smile either. Just a statement, a quiet blade sliding between us. My mouth went dry. I should have lied, laughed it off, said something about coincidence. But the silence between us stretched, and for the first time, I didn't want to retreat. "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded younger than I wanted it to. "Can you blame me?" For a moment, she didn't move. Her hand tightened around the strap of her purse. A small gesture, but it betrayed something. Nerves, maybe. Regret. Something she wouldn't admit out loud. Her eyes narrowed, not with suspicion, but with something else. She shifted her weight, almost stepping back, but not quite. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured. "Then stop giving me reasons to." I answered before I could stop myself. The radiator hissed louder, as if the building itself was leaning in to listen. My pulse hammered in my ears. I waited for her to laugh it off, to walk away, to remind me of the age in her eyes and the youth in mine. But she didn't. Instead, she let the silence sit between us, heavy, charged. Her gaze flickered across my face like she was memorizing it, or maybe convincing herself to forget it. I looked down at her hands, pale fingers wrapped so tightly around the purse strap that her knuckles had gone white. For someone so composed, she looked cornered. And for someone so young, I felt reckless enough to step closer. I didn't, though. My feet stayed planted. My throat locked up. Then her lips parted, like she was about to say something she hadn't planned to. Something fragile. But before she could, a sudden buzz cut through the hallway. My phone lit up in my pocket, the vibration jarring against the silence. Unknown number. The sound made her flinch, just slightly, but enough to break whatever was unraveling between us. Her hand slipped from her purse strap. She drew in a breath, steady, controlled, like nothing had happened. "Good night," she said, almost too calmly, before retreating back into her apartment. The door shut with a soft click. I stood there, phone buzzing against my leg, staring at the wood grain of her door, wishing I'd moved an inch closer, just one. The phone call that night turned out to be nothing, just a wrong number. But the sound of it lingered, like an interruption in a conversation I hadn't been ready to leave. For the next few days, I tried to avoid the hallway. Not because I didn't want to see her, but because I wasn't sure I could look her in the eye after what I'd said. "Can you blame me?" The words replayed in my head, reckless, too bare. But she didn't make it easy. 3 mornings later, I found her at the mailbox, pulling out envelopes with that same deliberate slowness. Bills, flyers, a postcard from somewhere that looked warm. She glanced at me briefly, then backed down, like she hadn't spent the other night standing just a few feet away, breathing the same tense air. "Morning," I offered. She hesitated before answering. "You're usually out later." It wasn't much, but it was something. I learned, slowly, that she used to be married. Not from her directly, but from the way her ring finger bore a faint, pale indentation, like the ghost of a promise. The neighbors said he left years ago, some story about a job in another state that turned into a permanent absence. She never corrected them, at least not that I heard. As for me, I don't think she knows much. Just that I'm 23, finishing school part-time, working nights at the cafe down the street. I don't tell her about the girlfriend who left 6 months ago, saying I wasn't serious enough. Maybe she was right. Maybe she saw this side of me coming before I did. The age gap hangs between us, unspoken but undeniable. She doesn't need to remind me. Every time I catch my reflection next to hers in the elevator's mirrored wall, I see it clearly. Youth on one side, something steadier, more weathered, on the other. It should embarrass me. Sometimes it does. But it doesn't stop me. That evening, I caught her outside, struggling with grocery bags. Two slipped against her arm, threatening to tear. Instinct overruled hesitation. Here, let me, I said, stepping forward before she could protest. I've got it, she answered quickly, but the bag was already breaking, and an apple rolled across the hall floor. I bent, picked it up, handed it back. Our fingers brushed, just a second, but enough to feel the warmth, the small tremor in her grip. She didn't look at me, not directly. Her gaze dropped to the groceries, her lips tightening, as if scolding herself for allowing even that much. Thank you, she said softly, and something in her tone carried more weight than the words themselves. I wanted to tell her it was nothing, but it didn't feel like nothing. Instead, I carried the bags to her door, set them down gently. She hesitated before unlocking it, the keys jingling in her hand, a nervous rhythm. Then she paused, half-turned, as if considering whether to invite me in. She didn't, but she lingered just long enough for me to notice. Her hand brushed against the doorframe, lingering there the same way it happened on a Thursday night, when the building felt thinner than usual, walls too close, sounds carrying farther than they should. I'd just come back from my shift, tired but restless, when I saw her door half open. A soft glow spilled into the hallway. I hesitated. Then I heard a voice. "Mail, you're still here?" he asked, half laughing. Her answer was muffled, but I caught enough. "Just dropping something off, that's all." I froze. Another man. Inside her apartment. My stomach knotted, and I told myself it was none of my business. She wasn't mine. She couldn't be. But my feet wouldn't move. The door opened wider. A tall guy in a leather jacket stepped out, jingling his keys. He glanced at me, quick, assessing, but didn't say anything. Just walked down the hall and disappeared into the stairwell. She followed a moment later, tugging her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. Her eyes flicked toward me, unreadable. "Friend?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Her pause was too long. "My ex-husband," she said finally. The word ex should have settled me. It didn't. "He still has keys?" "Not anymore," she muttered, locking the door with a deliberate twist. Her hands trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. We stood there, silent, stretching. My chest tightened with questions I shouldn't ask. She looked tired, exhausted, even, but also softer, like the mask she usually wore had slipped. "Do you want?" I started. Stopped. She tilted her head. "What? Do you want me to stay?" The words were out before I could stop them. Her eyes widened, not in shock exactly, but in something closer to warning. "You shouldn't." I didn't ask if I should. For a second, the world shrank to that hallway. The hum of the lights, the faint smell of her perfume, the sound of her breath catching. I took a step closer. She didn't move. Her lips parted, like she might say no. But no sound came. I leaned in, close enough to see the faint lines at the corner of her eyes, to feel the warmth radiating off her skin. Close enough that one more breath would have ended the space between us. Then, footsteps echoed up the stairwell. A neighbor's laugh cut through the tension. She pulled back fast, retreating into the shadow of her doorway. "Go inside," she whispered, not looking at me. "Before someone sees." Her voice wasn't sharp. It was pleading. I swallowed hard, nodded, forced my feet to move. My own door felt miles away. But before I turned the key, I glanced back. She was still there, hand pressed flat against her doorframe, watching me, not moving, not saying a word. And in that silence, I knew. She wanted me to stay just as much as she wanted me gone. Mine had brushed hers. A silent echo. The storm came on fast. By evening, the rain was hammering the windows, wind rattling the old building until it felt like the walls themselves might crack. Power flickered once, twice, then went out altogether, leaving the hall in half-darkness. I hadn't meant to leave my apartment, but when I heard the faint knock, not at my door, but across the hall, instinct carried me out. She was there, a flashlight in her hand, her sweater clutched tight. "Yours out too?" she asked. Her voice sounded steadier than her face looked. "Yeah." I tried to smile, but it faltered. "You okay?" She hesitated, then nodded. But she didn't go back inside. Instead, she lingered, flashlight beam trembling slightly as it skimmed the floor. "Do you?" I started, then caught myself. Too much. Too obvious. Her eyes met mine. Something unspoken passed between us. Not invitation exactly, but not refusal either. We ended up in her living room, a couple of candles flickering against the shadows. The storm muffled the world outside, making the silence between us louder. I sat on the edge of the couch. She settled in the armchair across from me, arms folded tight, as if holding herself together. Minutes stretched. My thoughts tumbled over each other, loud in my chest. Say something. Don't. Look away. Don't. Finally, she broke the silence. "You shouldn't keep looking at me like that," she said softly. I swallowed. "How else am I supposed to look at you?" Her lips pressed together. She shook her head, but her eyes didn't leave mine. "You don't understand." "Then tell me." She leaned back, exhaling through her nose. "I've already done this before. I already ruined something once. With him." Her voice tightened. "I don't get to make the same mistake twice." It hit me harder than I expected, not the mention of her ex, but the way her words sounded like she was trying to convince herself. "You think being with me would be a mistake?" I asked, my voice low. Her flashlight, now set aside, cast a faint glow across the table. She stared at it instead of me, her fingers tapping against the arm of the chair, restless, unsettled. "You're young," she whispered. "You'll look back and wonder why you wasted time on someone like me." The words scraped something raw inside me. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to catch her gaze. "Do you really believe that?" I asked. "Or do you just want me to leave you alone?" Her eyes lifted, sharp and pained, as if I'd torn through a wall she'd spent years building. Neither of us spoke. The rain roared louder, the candle flickered, and then she stood suddenly, crossing the small space in 2 steps. She stopped in front of me, close enough that the hem of her cardigan brushed my knee. Her breath shuddered out, uneven. Her hand twitched at her side, as if she almost reached for me, but forced it still. "I can't," she whispered, but it didn't sound final. It sounded broken. I rose slowly, until we were face to face, the air between us electric. My hand lifted, hovered just inches from hers, waiting for her to close the space. And then, a sharp knock rattled the door. Both of us froze. The knock at her door landed again, sharper this time, insistent. She stiffened, one hand instinctively brushing down her cardigan, smoothing herself into composure. I stepped back, pulse hammering, every part of me screaming, "Don't answer it." But she moved quickly, like she already knew who it was. When she opened the door, the hallway light fell over a young woman, mid-20s maybe, damp from the rain, her expression hard. "Mom," she said flatly. My stomach dropped. "Her daughter." Anna's voice faltered. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Claire's eyes flicked from her mother to me, and I saw the moment she put it together. The half-burned candles, the storm outside, the distance between us that wasn't enough to hide the truth. "I was going to surprise you," Claire said. "Guess I did." Silence. The storm outside filled it, rattling the windows. I shifted my weight, wishing I could disappear into the carpet. Anna finally found her voice. "It's not what it looks like." Claire laughed once, bitter. "Then tell me, what is it?" Her eyes cut to me again, sharp enough to draw blood. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Anna's hand trembled against the doorframe. "He's just a neighbor." The word burned through me. Just a neighbor. Claire crossed her arms, her wet jacket dripping onto the floor. "Do neighbors sit around in candlelight while you look like you've seen a ghost?" Anna didn't answer. She couldn't. I couldn't stand the silence anymore. "She's right. I am just a neighbor." The words scraped my throat raw. Anna's eyes shot to mine, wide, pained, but she didn't correct me, didn't stop me, and that hurt more than I expected. Claire shook her head, stepping back. "You can do what you want, Mom. You always have. Just don't pretend it's innocent." Her footsteps echoed down the hall, quick and angry, leaving the door hanging open behind her. Anna closed it slowly, as if the weight of it might crush her. The click of the lock sounded final. We stood in silence, the candles flickering, the air between us colder than it had been minutes before. "You didn't have to say that," she whispered finally, her voice unsteady. "What else was I supposed to say?" I asked, harsher than I meant. "That I've been watching you for weeks? That I can't stop thinking about you?" Her face tightened, a mix of guilt and something else. Longing, maybe, though she tried to bury it. "This is exactly why I told you we can't," she said, barely above a whisper. It's not just about me. It's about her. About what people will think. About being ashamed. I cut in. Her breath caught. For a second, I thought she might shout, push me out, end it all right there. But instead, she sank into the armchair, pressing her hands against her face like she was holding herself together. I ruined one family already, she said quietly. I won't ruin hers too. Her words hung heavy, choking the room. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about us. It was bigger, messier, dangerous, and I wasn't sure I could walk away. The storm had passed by morning, but the weight in the air hadn't lifted. I avoided the hallway all day, but when I finally stepped out for work, her door opened too, as if we'd both been waiting. She looked tired, not in the way lack of sleep shows, but in the way guilt wears a person down. Our eyes met, and something unspoken pulled us both into her apartment before either of us said a word. Candles still sat on the table, their wax hardened. A reminder of what almost happened. What still could. I stood there, restless, hands shoved into my pockets, while she lingered by the window, arms crossed like a shield. Finally, she said it. Claire won't forgive me if she thinks this is real. And is it? My voice cracked more than I wanted it to. She turned then, really looking at me. No mask, no careful distance, just the raw truth in her eyes. Yes, and that's the problem. The words hit me like a blow and a lifeline all at once. I wanted to cross the room, close the gap, hold her until she stopped shaking. But she held her ground, as if daring me to. You can't keep pushing me away and pulling me back, I said. If you want me to leave, say it. Right now? I'll go. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Instead, her hands fumbled against the window frame, gripping tight like she needed something to hold her upright. I've already lost once, she whispered. My marriage. My daughter's trust. If I lose her again because of you, because of me, I cut in, or because you're too afraid to want what you want. The words hung heavy. She flinched, but didn't deny it. I stepped closer, my voice low. Tell me to walk out, Anna. Tell me I mean nothing. If you can. Her breath stuttered. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, cornered. And then, she broke. Her hand rose, trembling, and pressed against my chest. Not pushing me away. Holding me there. I can't, she said, her voice cracking. God help me, I can't. That was all it took. I caught her hand, threading my fingers through hers, pulling her closer until the distance disappeared. She sagged against me, her forehead against my shoulder, every part of her shaking, not from fear, but from release. We didn't kiss. Not yet. It was messier than that, rawer. Just the two of us clinging to something we both knew might break us, but refusing to let go. After a long silence, she whispered into my shirt, I don't know how to do this without losing everything. I held her tighter. Then let's lose it together. Her laugh was soft, cracked, wet with tears. But she didn't let go. Neither did I. For the first time, there was no silence left between us. Only the terrifying honesty of staying. The building was quieter in the days that followed. Too quiet. Neighbors passed in the hallway with the same polite nods as always, but I felt their eyes linger longer, like maybe they'd heard something. Or maybe it was just me, carrying the weight of everything unsaid. Claire didn't come back. At least, not while I was around. I'd hear Anna's phone buzz sometimes, the muffled sound of her voice through the thin walls, soft, patient, apologetic. I never caught the words, only the pauses. The ones where she waited for forgiveness that didn't come. We didn't talk about that night. Not directly. Instead, we found ways to exist near each other without names for what we were. I'd bring her groceries when the elevator broke down. She'd leave a plate of leftovers outside my door after cooking too much. Small things, disguised as neighborly gestures, but weighted with meaning. One evening, she knocked on my door instead. No groceries, no excuses. Just her, standing there with that same cardigan wrapped around her like armor. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. We sat on the couch, a careful space between us, like the silence itself was holding us apart. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but also something else. Something steadier. I talked to Claire, she said finally. She's angry, hurt, but she'll come around. She always does. I nodded, not sure what to say. I don't want to live like I'm waiting for permission anymore, she continued. Her voice was quiet, but sure. Not from her. Not from anyone. I swallowed hard. And me? Her lips pressed into a thin line, then softened. You scare me. Why? Because you make me want things I told myself I couldn't want anymore. The words cut and healed at the same time. My chest ached, but I leaned closer, closing the space we'd been guarding. I'm not going anywhere, I said. She let out a shaky breath, then reached for my hand. Her fingers laced with mine, hesitant at first, then firm. And just like that, the distance that had defined us was gone. We didn't need declarations or grand promises. Just the warmth of her hand, the soft brush of her shoulder against mine, the quiet truth that we had chosen this, together, no matter how messy it looked from the outside. The storm had passed, but the aftermath was ours to live in, and for the first time, neither of us seemed afraid of it. I squeezed her hand gently. She didn't let go. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Sparkles, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?